So before we start off this video, it's worth knowing that it's the second part to another review I did back in December of the main game. This is a continuation from that video, so I suggest watching that first. I'll leave a link in the description below because YouTube doesn't allow annotations anymore because it's a pile of shit, and I would suggest going back here afterwards. Oh, it's also worth mentioning that in this video there's going to be a shit ton of spoilers as it's set right after the main events of Dead Rising 4. So again, you have been warned. So as we all know, Frank died. Well, I did say spoilers. And from here, the game would normally end, thankfully. However, in Frank Rising, as the title says, Frank is reincarnated as a zombie and he's lost his jacket for some reason. I assume a zombie must have got really hungry. And after that pointless note, we're smacked right back into the game, with some new gameplay mechanics. The first big one being your attacks. Normally in Dead Rising, you're meant to use whatever you can find in the environment as a weapon. However, now that you're a zombie, you are the weapon. With a leap instead of a throwable, a basic smack for melee, and instead of ranged, you've got vomit. Lovely. While restricted to these attacks alone throughout the DLC, you can however upgrade them throughout the story, but I will come back to this later on. However, for now, I've got to ask, where the fuck did these looters come from? I'm pretty sure at the end of the main story you're being chased by a non-stop horde, so how did these group of people slip by? Well, I have no idea. What's great though is you learn that zombies do not give a fuck about you anymore because, well, you're a zombie. So we're already off to a good start gameplay wise because it makes it a little bit different to the main story itself. And yes, keep in mind, the looters hate you and they think you're worse than zombies. Apparently they remember you when you were alive, I guess. So there was something else in this DLC which I absolutely loved when I started playing it, and that's that now Frank doesn't talk! As a zombie we're reduced to grunts and groans from Frank, and honestly I'm fine with this. I'd rather hear this than cheesy one-liners throughout the story again, because I fucking hated them before. From here you progress back the way you came, no idea why, it just happens, it's the way the game tells you to go. I assume it's because you can smell humans or something. You're told to then go kill some humans, and then Hammond, who in all honesty I'm surprised is still alive and in the mall at this point, she finds you and then shoots the shit out of your corpse. Oh, if only the game ended there. But for good old Frank, death doesn't seem to be an option, as unfortunate as that is. Frank survives the onslaught of bullets, which again is upsetting as I'm sick of him cheating death at this point. Blackburn has reappeared, for some reason, in the story again, and Irons again thought she was dead. She then mentions how you're slowly turning back into a human state from the drugs she's been giving you, while Hammond believes you're dead and wants to put you out of your misery. Now what I think is really stupid about this is later on in the game they try to make you hate Hammond for not believing that Frank is back, when you know she saw him eat her team alive for no real reason. Yes, they were using looter skins, but they were in fact Hammond's team. Is this ever explained, or as to why this happens? No. No, it isn't. Honestly, I don't really care. Anyway, moving back to the current part of the plot, Hammond leaves to prepare for an escape plan, while Blackburn proves that you're still in control by telling you to grab some keys and set yourself free. Blackburn must be really fucking stupid, because if I could, I would have killed her by now. From here, Blackburn tells you that it's possible to revert the infection, but she needs some equipment from over the town. And then Frank decides to make a dim-witty response on, oh my fucking god, he can talk again. There's no change to this at all. There's no struggle of speech. He has one sentence that sounds particularly zombified, and then bam. For the rest of the game, Frank is just shitty old fake Frank, which really ruins part of the whole, ooh, I'm a zombie, I eat brains and shit. Well, thanks Blackburn, trying to cure Frank ended up fucking ruining part of this game. Oh, and the bullshit doesn't end here. Now that he's been partially cured, he's more human than zombie. And you know what that means? Zombies think you're human again. What was the point of making zombies ignore you at the start just to revert things to how they were? I thought in this mode it was all being about against human survivors, but no. Zombies think you're human, humans think you're zombies. What does this change? Absolutely fuck all, and overall it feels like the main game again. Keep in mind, this was within the first 10 minutes of this DLC. The one thing they had going for it, and they just ruined it. It's a real shame at this point because Frank Rising now just feels more like a pointless story for the sake of a DLC. Which, well, yeah, that's typical for game developers. You could have just ended it with Frank dying, but this became a thing. Oh well, at least of your zombie abilities. And where have they gone? No, wait. Once again, because of Blackburn's fucking magic, any trace of zombie activity has just vanished because fuck knows why. But roughly 5 minutes later, once you let back into the mall, you discover the cause of Calder, and he's got this weird green glowing thing around him, which Blackburn tells you to inject to yourself because plot, and you discover that they're Princess Wasp. Yes, you remember the mechanic they took out of the main game? The queen which would kill all zombies? Yep, well, they're back now and they're princesses, and these give Frank stronger powers. You're also informed from here onwards that you have about an hour and a half time limit before the town of Willamette is bombed once again, and yes, that's how short this DLC is, keep in mind, and it costs around, what, 8 quid? That's roughly about half the price of the season pass, so you can imagine the regret I'm feeling already. Now that's pretty much it for the plot. After discovering the power-ups you can obtain from the princesses, you were told to go throughout the town of Willamette and find bits and pieces. You know, like the overtime mode from Dead Rising 1 or 2. But wait, the challenges make a return as well. Kind of. Through the game you have to find various challenges. The variation of the challenges, however, are very lackluster. You've got survive for a minute or two, hit a certain hit combo, kill the leader, or my least favourite, find the clouds of gas in a specific area for fuck knows why. Now there is a reason behind doing these challenges, and that's the way you level up in this DLC. There's no skill points, there's no leveling up in the sense of PP. It's do the challenge, upgrade yourself. I guess that'll have to do because not a lot else happens. You go around, kill things, grab the loot, just like an overtime mode, and once you get closer to the end of the story, you finally convince Hammond that you're actually alive and not just a brainless zombie. And to no one's surprise, the most cliched thing ever in a game, Blackburn rats you out to Obscurus, and also orders Hammond and her team to get killed and have you experimented on, which I'll be honest, if you didn't see it coming at this point, it's kind of obvious. I mean, they kind of shout it in your face time and time again. Oh, from here you kill a bunch of people and then make your way to Barnaby's mansion, because that's where the laboratory is, to find Blackburn, kill Obscurus and get the hell out of Dodge. But upon entering the lab, you're prompted with a message stating, once again, this is a point of no return, and it also mentions the Princess Wasp I mentioned earlier. So, depending on how many you have left to collect, the ending is different. Right, so in the DLC there's multiple endings, and there's not in the main game. Do you want to know what makes this even dumber? The endings are exactly the same. You see Frank be cured no matter what, and then Frank gets on the helicopter. If it's the good ending, he gets a fist bump from Hammond. You know, the thing he deserved all this time. If it's the bad ending, Hammond and her team died and you just sit there in silence, with both having dialogue at the end just to give a brief summary of the events afterwards. So it's basically the shittest cop-out of an ending I've ever seen from Capcom. Now, I understand that in Dead Rising games you have the text to kind of give a brief summary, however for this it's just a bit of a joke. Oh, there is actually a third ending where you run out of time, but there's no cutscene. It just goes black and then you hear sound and then more text. The bad ending would have been more of an impact if these characters had more development throughout the main story in DLC, but instead you're giving an ending with a character who, let's be honest, no one cares about being killed off, so both endings feel pretty much identical. Kind of like the Mass Effect 3 endings if you think about it. What I find weird though is that I still enjoyed this DLC more than the main game itself, and that only lasts for an hour and a half. My biggest complaint is how this starts off with an interesting mechanic of Frank being the shell of his former self, which to be fair is not that hard after comparing this to Dead Rising 1 and Off the Record, but he should have had a slow progression back into the Frank which he's meant to be, not just have it at the start and then go straight back into the shitty jokes. Hopefully, if there's a Dead Rising 5 at this point, they reboot the series. Hopefully with some new characters instead of leeching off what made the game a success in the first place. As this game clearly shows, that was a failure of their move. And while Dead Rising isn't the worst game ever, it's still the worst of the series. I'm calling it now, Chuck will be back with a new voice doctor and they'll kill him off in the next one. Probably Katie will kill him. Yep, I've just given them the plot for Dead Rising 5. Well, it just goes to show going to the roots of a game doesn't mean you're making it better. But you know what is better? Having physical games for indie games, which never get the chance normally. Yes, this video was brought to you or sponsored by, depending on how you look at it, IndieBox. What is IndieBox? Well, go have a look at the website. It's indie games with physical boxes. Pretty self-explanatory. At the moment, you can get a limited edition of Super Meat Boy, and to be honest, it looks pretty fucking cool. But seriously, don't take my word for it. Check the link down below and have a look yourself. Oh, also, while you're in the description, have a look at my Twitter. I shit about games all the time. I'm currently moaning at Overkill again. Besides that, you can have a look at my other reviews, which are alright, I guess. I'm not very good at it, and from the looks of it, I'm not very good at my outros. So I will leave you with this. Have a cracking week. I've been Sir Crackerbulb, and thanks for watching.